Good evening. The South's main ports have been at a standstill for much of the day because of a dispute over new port legislation. Harbour Workers Union members at Dunedin, Port Chalmers and Bluff stopped work because of their concern that watersiders are being given a labour monopoly on the wharves. Work's expected to resume in the morning. The writers of our most read words are spending the week in Dunedin discussing subjects ranging from the great New Zealand novel to how to cope with critics. They're here for the first New Zealand Writers' Week, which has attracted hopeful bestsellers from far afield. Kim Hurring also found them indulging in a world record attempt, probably the closest they'll ever get to a literary sporting event.
From all over the country, the top names are together to talk words, but before the words, some music. The Shortened Girlies' own special welcome to the visitors.
Have you seen the albatross colony with all the big birds flying free? The biggest wingspan, goodness me. Pity we don't always get to see them in Dunedin. Dunedin. Oh, oh, Dunedin. Oh, oh, Dunedin. Oh, oh, Dunedin. Oh, oh, funky Dunedin.
The conference was opened with a message to consumers.
Buy New Zealand books, subscribe to New Zealand literary magazines. Without them, New Zealand literature would wither and die.
One way to capture media attention at a conference like this is to go for a world record, this time for the number of books that could be signed in an hour. The pen-pushing personalities were pleased to suffer some writer's cramp in order to benefit the volunteer service abroad. One man had bought only a small selection of his book library.
I've got a lot of books, and
How many?
around about 14,000, I think.
Where do you keep 14,000 books?
Well, they're all over the walls, so the house is full of pictures and books. There's no room for food, clothing or anything else. So.
Some were scrawled signatures, others were artistically embellished. Margaret Mayhe had the longest queue to sign her children's books, while others remained embarrassingly anonymous. Nearly 700 signatures gave them the world record, which wasn't difficult as this is the first time it's been attempted.
Ways of making life easier for the families of cancer patients are being looked at by the Cancer Society and the Child Cancer Society in Dunedin. The two groups want to lessen the financial and emotional burden for those who have to spend time here while treatment's carried out. Sally Pears has been looking at the solution to the problem.
By the end of October, this piece of land in Great King Street will be transformed into a home away from home for families of cancer patients. Until now, families have arranged private accommodation or stayed at Waikari Hospital, but the Cancer Society and the Child Cancer Society say this is no longer viable.
Now that the radiotherapy unit's moving downtown, the Waikari site would be a wee bit too far away.
Over the next few months, the two groups will get stuck into fundraising for the building, which will have two wings. In the first, there'll be accommodation for 6 couples, and the Child Cancer unit will take up to 4 families. There will be kitchen and dining facilities and a landscape garden. The move has been applauded by families like the Rudenclaws, who will make use of the unit in the near future. At the age of 2, their daughter Sarah was diagnosed as having cancer and had to undergo 2 years of treatment. They live in Five Forks, a 4-hour return drive. During Sarah's intensive treatment period, they were allowed to stay in the hospital, but when she became an outpatient, things got harder.
We weren't required to stay in the hospital, but we had to come to the hospital once a day for 5 days a week, generally about once a week, every month.
Patients and family alike praise the hospital. The child cancer ward in particular has a very colourful atmosphere. But with the new accommodation, patients will be able to spend time with families in a more homely environment.
When the child's receiving radiotherapy or receiving chemotherapy, they can leave the hospital and be in a relaxing atmosphere, which I think is important insofar as the child's stability and attitude goes. It's more like a home.
But there are also other aspects.
It will give parents the opportunity to perhaps meet other parents with the same problems, and that's very important really, because it's a fairly horrific and traumatic experience.
The building should be up and running by the end of the year, giving children like Nadia another place to call home.
Most of the top golfers from Southland and Otago will be at Otatara tomorrow for the start of the Southland Ladies Golf Championships. One player who will attract special interest is the new #1 in Southland golf, former national representative Sue Hamilton. And as Ken Nicholson reports, she's found a delightful new spot to play her club golf.
This is Augusta, the American showplace of world golf, with its fairways that seem to have been cut by scissors and trees trimmed by hairdressers. And this is Dipton, the tiny central Southland golf course where the sheep are as much at home as the 17 members of the ladies' club. But now it's the club home of Sue Hamilton, the former New Zealand rep who will lead Southland in this year's Stylemaster tournament at Otatara. In the mid-70s, Sue Hamilton was this country's leading amateur player, good enough to finish 13th in a World Amateur Championship. She's been in 3 winning Stylemaster teams since her debut as a youngster in the 1969 Otago team, and showed she's back to her very best with a win over Otago's in-form #1, Melanie Harper, in the recent interprovincial clash. But in spite of her impressive background in the sport, Sue fits in well with her rural surroundings and doesn't think it's any disadvantage to play her club golf on such a rustic course.
No, it's certainly not. You know, you've got to hit the ball here to get the results. There's no run. The greens are rather tricky, a little long, but, you know, you can certainly have a go at all the putts. I started off on a course like this years ago, a little 9-hole course, so I feel it's, you know, back to the start again, but certainly no disadvantage.
You really have had a lot to do with country golf, and it has got a special atmosphere about it, little clubs like this, hasn't it?
It certainly has. They're very friendly and very helpful.
Gladys Palmer and Judith Beard are out on the course as well, Judith having the remarkable record of 21 club championships to her credit. However, she can now expect a bit of opposition when she tries to add a name once again on the honours board.
I've got opposition this year, I definitely have.
But it's a good thing to have someone like Sue come into the club and set standards.
Oh, it's tremendous, yes, yes.
Gladys Palmer feels that having someone like Sue Hamilton in such a small club is a great boost for the lesser players, who can gain much from playing with a national representative.
Yes, I would say, yes. Quite frightening at the start, but they must benefit by it.
When we look at that, Sue, do you do any coaching among club members when you get to a smaller course like this?
Well, you know, I played Gladys the other day in a match, and I helped her, gave her a few tips, and I do try and help the ladies that I play with, just simple things.
But things are still the same at the Dipton Golf Club, even if its newest member might be used to surroundings slightly grander than the Dipton clubhouse.
But the hospitality's definitely better. We'll be back tomorrow night. Good night.